again. 235 years ago, we created the United States. We live in a free country because men and women have gone for years before us to protect that right. We're going to celebrate this weekend for the 8 million men and women that served in the Pacific Theater, Asiatic Pacific Theater of Operations. We're going to celebrate the 292,000 Americans that gave their life so that you can sit here and watch this show. But now, what happened 235 years ago? We founded this country. This country is still strong. It has its ups and downs, but that's what we're here for. So on December 7th, 1941, America was bombed at Pearl Harbor. The Japanese and Americans had not been getting along that well lately. The Japanese ended that debate. We're now at war. 3 days later, December the 10th, Germany declared war on us. That means your country is going to do something that all military tacticians tell you never to do: fight two enemies on distant shores at the same time. Why was that so bad? Because on December the 8th, 1941, your country was not ready. You just lost 4 battleships and over 2,000 men and women in Pearl. It was a sneak attack. They didn't know it was coming. Nothing stands between you and Japan at this point. And in 1941, folks, we did not know how this was going to come out. We do know this: Germany is rolling over Europe. Britain is on its last rope. Our Lend-Lease program is going to help them, but we did not want to get into a shooting war. Now you have no choice. Your Marine Corps numbers less than 65,000 men. China, Burma, all those other countries that we've never heard of before, Wake Island, Guam, Peleliu, we're going to get to know these real firsthand. The nurses on Corregidor, Bataan, the soldiers, the sailors, the Marines, got the worst command given: hold until relieved. Why? Because your president and your military leaders realize we're not going to be able to fight both these guys at the same time. Pick one. They picked Germany first, because if Germany wins, Europe loses. If Europe loses, the world you sit in will cease to exist. Let me tell you something about your enemy, Germany. You beat them once. We know we can do it again. Let me tell you something about Japan. They've never lost a war. In 1905, their government made it a national law: they will not surrender. Men, women, and children will die for their country. In 1905, their Navy beat the Russian Navy in a little battle. That sounds significant? Well, maybe not. Japan Navy rated 15, Russian number 5, and the Japan won. Why is that important to you? Because in 1905, your Navy's rated behind Argentina. They just bombed Pearl Harbor. We're not ready. So we got to get there. So what's the first thing you got to do? Learn about your enemy. Know your enemy. Meet the Japanese.
He's not Japanese.
Konnichiwa gozaimasu, minasan. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you all doing? Good. Throughout this presentation, I ask you all to bear with the heat, and I hope you enjoy the show. To help you all understand why during World War II young Japanese and American boys fought to the death on islands like the one represented before you here, I'd like to take you back to understand the origins of modern Japan and its military. In the 1850s, the United States Admiral named Commodore Perry sailed with a fleet of gunboats into Tokyo Bay with the intent on opening Japan to trade, sending their best students and advisors to military academies and universities around the world to take the modern Western world back to Japan and integrate it into their new country. In the 1880s, they helped the British quell a rebellion in China. This was the first time they tested out new ground troops armed with rifles entirely instead of with bows and swords. 1905, as stated before, they won a war against Russia on the sea and on land in Korea, effectively annexing Korea as part of their empires. This was the first time a non-Western power had defeated a Western one in modern military warfare, and it shocked the world. As stated again, they fought on the side of the Allies during World War I, eradicating the Germans from the Pacific theater, gaining important possessions such as the port of Tsingtao in China. However, in the 1930s, the Great Depression rocked the world, and Japan was not exempt from this. Due to modern advances in medical technology, farming, and in transportation, Japan's population exponentially grew at this time, and they had to look outside the borders of their small home islands just to feed their people. So, a military expedition was sent across the Sea of Japan to mainland China, and engaged the Chinese nationalists and communists there in what amounted to a resource war to bring home food, manpower, and raw resources, things they needed to thrive and survive. This military action in China brought condemnation upon the Japanese on the world stage. The United States and Great Britain particularly were threatened by these moves, as they had interests in China as well. So sanctions were placed upon the Japanese, who could no longer trade to get oil, rubber, tin, things they needed, one, to continue their war and thus feed their people. So sites were set by the Imperial General Headquarters on British, Dutch, and French colonies in Southeast Asia. One by one, these bastions of colonial rule and these colonial armies were crushed by the finest light infantry force and navy in the world at the time, the Japanese military. Farther south was the United States-controlled Philippines. And at this point, the Japanese military made the difficult decision to preemptively strike at the United States Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor, hopefully dealing a death blow to the United States Navy and cowing the president into staying out of the Pacific theater so that the Japanese would be free to pursue their own interests. You'll notice that myself and the soldiers accompanying me here are all dressed in lightweight cotton uniforms. This is a must in the South Seas area of operation, as temperatures can be very austere, often in excess of 100 degrees, not much different than a Texas summer. Around his legs are maki kyahan, called putties in English. Even World War I U.S. doughboys wore these wraps around their calves. They keep debris out of the soldier's trousers and shoes and can be unwrapped in a pinch to serve as a bandage or a tourniquet. Around his waist, he has the leather Type 30 ammunition belt set, 30 rounds of ammunition for his rifle in each front pouch and an additional 60 in the rear, as well as an oiler bottle to service his weapons and equipment. On his hip, he has a haversack to carry toiletries, snacks, extra ammunition, personal items, grenades, whatever he needs out in the field and in combat after he's dropped his large pack in garrison. On his back as well, he's wearing the Type 90 steel pot helmet with a cloth cover and net. Standard ballistic protection is meant to protect the wearer from shrapnel damage and concussion from artillery strikes or grenades. The cloth cover helps keep the sun off the helmet so it doesn't heat up as much on the soldier's head, and the net is used to insert local foliage for camouflage. He's issued the Type 38 Arisaka rifle. It's a bolt-action rifle with an integral 5-round box magazine and utilizes a 6.5mm rifle cartridge. Standard for militaries at the time, this was designed in 1905. The era before semi-automatic infantry rifles were prolific in world militaries. You'll notice that the Type 30 bayonet, when attached on the rifle, makes the weapon almost as long as the soldier is tall who wields it. This is in keeping with the Japanese military mindset and warrior ethos, that it's far more effective and prudent to close in and destroy the enemy face-to-face than waste resources such as bullets or artillery. The Marine is going to help us demonstrate to you Jukendo, the art of bayonet fighting in the Japanese military. It's no accident that the bayonet is manufactured with a hook under the blade. In practice, this could be used to catch the enemy's muzzle or bayonet and open them for a strike. Once encountered, though, this move can be checked. This shows that it's not the weapon that wins the fight, but the soldier wielding it. And above all other forms of combat, the Japanese consistently train to destroy their enemy with tooth and nail, rifle butt, and bayonet. 1939, fighting a protracted war against Chinese forces and occasionally skirmishing with the Soviets on the border of Manchuria in Mongolia, Japanese soldiers on the ground asked for more firepower for the individual. Thus, the Type 99 rifle was designed, commissioned, and issued to troops in the shooting war right before the encounter with the British and the Americans. Utilizes an upgraded 7.7mm round, which is comparable to the United States .306 cartridges and British .303 rifle rounds used at the time. You notice that this rifle, even with the bayonet attached, is shorter than the Type 38 just seen. This is for two reasons: ease of use in urban and jungle combat, as well as ease of manufacturing. The less material it takes to create a rifle, more can be made and issued to troops. I'm going to demonstrate this rifle to you now, so please make sure you have your ear protection in. It utilizes the same 7.7mm round, fed by an inverted box magazine. The sights on this weapon are offset to the left so that the magazine and the carrying handle don't interfere with the soldier's view downrange. The monopod on the buttstock and a bipod on the front of the weapon to assist in firing from prone positions as a soldier laying down is more accurate and less of a target than one shooting from the hip. Unique to Japanese light machine guns are their inclusion of a bayonet mount. Why equip a machine gun with a bayonet mount, you may ask? Well, for two reasons. One, for a moral boost, that spirit, the confidence that the Japanese soldier could have that even if he was out of ammunition, he wasn't out of options. And two, to destroy those face to face who would refuse to surrender. But over 20 pounds makes an awkward bayonet delivery device. However, it's an excellent light machine gun. We'd like to see this weapon demonstrated. Yeah. Japanese firepower. Again, thank you all for attending. Next, Gunny is going to give you the rundown on American training techniques, weapons, and impressions of the Japanese at the beginning of the war. Thank you.
So clearly we're going to need some more Marines. We've got a good tool to make Marines though. We call it boot camp. And I need a volunteer. Don't everybody jump at once.
This guy, right here.
I'm very selective. Brown shirt in the back. You right there. He may regret putting his hand up. That might be one of the worst mistakes he's made today. What's your name? Ethan. How you doing? Ethan's my newest Marine. So we're going to see if we've got some new equipment for him. So we can't just throw him a uniform and weapon and say, hey, go make yourself a Marine. We're going to have to train him, right? Ethan, first thing you get, new hat. Put it on. And because during training he's going to have to run around, crawl through mud, climb over walls. He can't carry everything I give him in his hands. He's going to need pockets. Put that on. Now, do you know how that fastens in the front? Not really? Don't worry, you're going to be a quick study, I can tell. Now, because I may give him more items than he can carry just in that, he may need more pockets, right? I've got them. What do you weigh, Ethan? 67 pounds, very precise. Well, this is precisely 40 pounds. Ready? Now, Ethan, I don't want you to let the girls kid you. This is not a purpose, all right? Over your shoulder. You can also need one of these. You're going to need this. And have you had a chance to eat lunch yet? You have? All right, good. Well, I got you covered for dinner. Here's breakfast for tomorrow. Something to cook it in. And there we go. Now we have it completely outfitted as a basic Marine rifleman. Because the Marine Corps is also big on physical fitness, while we talk about all these, Ethan, I want you to start running laps around this sidewalk. All right, seriously, let's talk about some of these items I've given you. What you have right here is your U.S. Army Field Ration, K. The K ration. Now what this is something we developed to feed our troops with. We can produce these in the millions. They're small, they're lightweight, we can ship them overseas to feed our troops. The idea is that we can feed them 1 or 2 of these a day, and then hopefully we can supplement that with 1 hot meal a day. In reality, the troops in the field would eat these for weeks on end if that's all we could get to them. Here's an idea of the contents. 1 package assorted biscuits, 1 package lemon juice powder, 1 can pork luncheon meat, 1 D ration chocolate bar, made mainly of wax, 4 tablets of sugar, and 1 stick of chewing gum. Now that chewing gum, as it turned out, was a secret weapon because we like chewing gum here in the United States. So we put it in our rations and we gave it to our troops. What that did was it gave them something that they could chew on to keep their mouth from getting dry. That would stop them from consuming all their water at one time. Also, it's loaded with sugar. So at night when they're trying to stay awake in that foxhole, it's going to help them out. I've given him something to cook it in. That's his mess kit. His mess kit is what he's going to use to mix up his K rations. And when he does get that hot meal, it comes apart and becomes his serving tray. He's going to keep that in his pack. He's got a silverware inside. He can put other things in there he wants to keep safe. This item, this item I've given Ethan is his U.S. Navy flotation device. Now, because we're going to get on troop ships, travel to the South Pacific and fight the Japanese, we're going to have to do it aboard troop ships. If he falls overboard, this will keep him afloat. But if I've got him loaded down with all this gear, do you think this is going to help much? Believe it or not, it'll keep him afloat. But if he puts it around his waist, when he has all his gear on, he will float upside down. So we're going to teach him to lay it out like a log and put his arms across it and dog paddle to the beach if he needs to. What I've given him, I give him a little hard time about. It's not a purse. What this is your U.S. gas mask. Because the Japanese really didn't buy into the Geneva Convention after the First World War. We don't know if they're going to use poison gas. So we're going to issue one of these to every Marine and every soldier. You'll notice that Ethan has a wooden training rifle. The reason I've given him that is because, plainly put, when the war started and we started bringing thousands of people in off the streets to make them Marines and soldiers, we did not have enough weapons. So a toy company came to our aid and said, I can give you a facsimile of a rifle. We can use this to start his training. And though he can't shoot it, I can teach him his manual of arms. I can teach him sight alignment, sight pictures, trigger squeeze, and the basic functioning of a bolt-action rifle. Although he'll start his training with this, before he graduates boot camp, he'll be able to shoot a man-sized target at 500 yards with open sights, with a real rifle. Take a look at that house on your back. Go ahead and turn around and show the folks your backpack. Now you notice his is a little bit different than mine. When we started the war in the Pacific, our outposts in the South Pacific on those islands, like places like Wake and Corregidor, they were outfitted pretty much like this with World War I equipment. The new Marine Corps pack system, the M1941 pack system, consists of an upper and lower pack. In the upper pack, he's going to have his rations, his shaving kit, extra socks, underwear, any other personal items that he might want. In the bottom, he's going to have a set of the green herringbone twill uniform, our dungarees, and that's what we're going to fight the Second World War in. He'll also have in the bottom a complete another set of boots, which we call our boondockers. The camouflage item you see strapped around the back is a shelter half. He's going to carry half, and I'm going to carry half. When we get to where we need to camp out, we're going to button them together and make a pup tent. On the very back of the pack, you see a small shovel. It's called an entrenching tool, or E-tool for short. Now, Ethan, if you could, reach over your shoulder and grab that. But that's not going to work too well. We're going to rely on the buddy system, Ethan and I. When we get to where we need to dig that foxhole, we're going to stop. I'm going to reach up to his pack and grab his E-tool. I'm going to start digging. He'll guard me with his rifle. When I get tired, we'll trade off. He can dig and I'll guard him. Buddy system. About ready to drop that pack? You bet. You're going to be a little taller. What you have left is your basic fighting equipment of your Marine rifleman. Let's talk a little bit about his helmet. You'll notice it's different than mine. In World War I, we had the flat hat, or Kelly helmet, as it was properly called. In World War II, the United States developed the M1 helmet. We were the only country to have a two-piece helmet. What that means is he can take this heavy, hot shell and leave it off, put the liner on his head to keep the sun and the rain off. The liner comes down further on the sides and the back to protect his ears and the back of his neck. Protects from fragments and falling debris, but it does not stop bullets. If bullets enter here, they exit there. Or if the Marines have a particularly bad day at work, they'll go in, bounce around, spin several times, and come out somewhere else. Does not stop bullets. But on the good side, it is also a tool. For him, if he loses his dredging tool, this becomes his shovel. He can wash it. He can bathe it. On those troop ships going overseas, this becomes his emergency evacuation device. Take that liner out first. Also, at night when it's maybe a bad idea to get out of his foxhole, this becomes his porta-john. He can scoop some sand or dirt into it, do his business, set it down inside the foxhole. If the enemy does attack, he's going to pick it up, give that board back to the enemy, place this back on his head. Take the liner out first for that too. Here's your M1 helmet system. What we have left is load-bearing equipment. The American load-bearing equipment is made of canvas, heavy canvas, not leather like many of our enemies. In the tropics, leather is going to do several things. It's going to get wet and stretch. Then it's going to dry and crack. Then it's going to rot. Our canvas is going to hold up pretty good, and it's cheap to produce. We can make a lot of it. It'll stand up pretty well. Around his belt, you see a 10-pocket ammunition belt, same one like we used in the First World War, holding various amounts of ammunition depending on what weapon you have. Across the shoulders are the suspenders. Also part of the pack system, the suspenders were used to hold the upper and lower packs together. Many Marines discarded them or left them on the pack because they had a tendency to become tangled and fall off the shoulders, although they did keep the weight off the hips. If you notice on his right side, you see a canteen. Holds a little over a quart of water. Now, the design of this rig initially was supposed to have that canteen last that troop 1 day in combat. They found out it would last really about 20 minutes, so most Marines and soldiers would get a second or third, and they would add those on to carry more water. It's in a carrier that's not well insulated, so if it's 100 degrees out here, it's going to be 120 in that canteen, and we're going to learn to like it, because that's what we've got. Last item, what you see on his left side, which I have right here, is the one item we're not going to use the buddy system with. The reason why, this is our medical kit. If we hit the beach and I'm wounded, and then he uses his bandage to patch me up, what happens when he goes on down the road and gets hit? He doesn't have it anymore. So we're going to try to keep that to ourselves. If we have to use it on our buddy to save his life, we will. But generally speaking, that defies the buddy system. We're going to try to hang on. There you have the basic equipment of a U.S. Marine in World War II. Now there's one other thing Ethan's going to need before he continues on to the next phase of his training. He is going to need a set of identity discs, or as we call them, our dog tags. So I tell you what, Ethan, I want you to take these, and when the show is over, you take them over to that dog tag machine, and they'll put anything on them you want. Let's give him a hand, folks. You've been great. Now, you'll recall that I said before a Marine graduates boot camp, they will be able to fire at a man-sized target at 500 yards with open sights and hit it. The weapon they're going to use to accomplish this feat of marksmanship with is this, the U.S. 1903 Springfield rifle. The Springfield rifle does date from the First World War. You can tell its designation, 1903, the day of adoption. We carried in the First World War. It's a 5-round bolt-action repeater. Essentially the same as what our Japanese adversary is carrying. We think ours is a little bit better. The 1903 is fed from a 5-round stripper clip of powerful 30-06 ammunition. When the bolt is pulled to the rear, the stripper clip is inserted in the top. The rounds are then pressed down into the magazine, and the stripper clip is discarded. The bolt is then sent home and locked, and the weapon is now ready to fire. Because it's inherently dangerous in this condition, there's also a safety located on the back of the bolt. On one side it reads ready, and when I flip it over it reads safe. It also has a combat safety that stands straight up. It's faster to manipulate. In this condition, if I trip and fall, I won't shoot my buddy in the back. The 16-inch bayonet came standard equipped on 1903s and was issued in the beginning of the First World War, but later on that was shortened to a 10-inch version. It was less cumbersome and didn't get tangled up in the brush as much. I'm now going to demonstrate the 1903 Springfield. Please put your hearing protection in. me, hey, stupid, reload. It was known that troops with an empty rifle would continually cycle it and pull the trigger, never realizing it was not loaded. The 1903 was a good rifle, soldiered on through, and was issued in limited numbers through the end of the Second World War. But this war is going to take more modern, more efficient weapons. It's going to take more equipment and more men. So pay attention.
This is the 1911 A1 pistol. It timbers a 45 ACP full metal jacket traveling at 835 feet per second. That's like a brick going through a plate glass window. It has an effective range of 50 yards. It is single action, semi-automatic, magazine fed, air-cooled and recoil operating handgun. Weighs 2.5 pounds unloaded and 3 pounds loaded. Has an overall length of 8 1/4 inches. The magazine is a 7-round detachable box magazine which fits into the pistol grip. I'll now demonstrate this weapon. Put yours on. Last round, the slide locked back, indicating I'm out of ammo. To fix this, hit the magazine release button, old one pops out, put a new one in, hit the slide release, and I'm ready for a whole nother 7 rounds. Ladies and gentlemen, the 1911 A1.
As this war started progressing, we had to recruit, we had to train. In order to have men in the field, you have to have leaders, officers, and NCOs. Those officers and NCOs have a very special job. That is to lead men in combat. First, all Marines are riflemen first. We don't care if you fly a plane, drive a truck, or operate a typewriter. Your job is to qualify with that rifle, or you will not graduate boot camp. But in leadership, if I'm having to use my rifle, that means A, I'm doing something wrong, or it's just getting too hot and I've got to step in there. Having a pistol is a nice sidearm, but the problem is the short range, limited firepower capability. If I have to get in close and engage with the enemy, I need something a little better. Therefore, the military adopted this, the M1 carbine, to fill the gap between the rifle and the sidearm. It also has an advantage of being light, small and compact. In the brush country or the jungle, it's easy to wield. Most combat in the Pacific theater is less than 100 yards. Therefore, it's a nice tight package. Also, if I need to get my hands free, I can simply do this or grab it in combat if I need to. It is gas-operated, air-cooled, semi-automatic. Meaning simply put, when you load your magazine, you chamber your round, you pull the trigger. As the explosion occurs, the bullet is going down this way. Gas hole. Gas pushes this way against the bolt. Kicks it back, picks up the empty, picks up the next round, and you keep firing. You're going to be firing from a 15-round box magazine you see here. Now notice how small this cartridge is. That is 30 caliber bullet, just like a 30-06, except a smaller cartridge. Therefore, instead of 2,850 feet per second, it's only about 1,900 feet per second. Limited range, about 300 yards. No knockdown power. It has a very problem with that. It also has a small spring. Understand this weapon. It's not the fix-all, but it will get the job done. And at 300 yards or less, deadly accurate, and it will still do the job. Get yours on. Accurate to a minimum, but it's better than a pistol. Gives you a little more range down range. But again, if I'm having to do do this, we're in trouble. Therefore, I need infantry support. The men I lead. They're not armed with this or a pistol. They're armed now with this. In 1935, the military was experimenting with putting better firepower on the battlefield. By 1942, this weapon was adopted and implemented, the M1 rifle. Few features. Number one, she's 43.5 inches long. It is the heaviest shoulder-fired rifle system ever issued to combat infantry. Weighs 9.5 pounds. The Springfield weighs 8.5. She is also gas-operated, air-cooled, semi-automatic. Open your bolt. Insert your M-block clip from the top. You'll notice his M-block is not 5 rounds, but 8 rounds. This is also a very distinct advantage. Firing the standard M2 hardball M 1930-06 at 2,800 feet per second, he's trained at 500 yards. He will not leave boot camp until he qualifies. He puts a scope on this rifle. He can reach it to 1,200 yards. Basically, if he can see him, he can get him. Get your ears on. Fire 5. We landed on Guadalcanal with 1903 Springfields. The Japanese are armed with 5-shot bolt-action repeaters, just like ours. In fact, every country in the world is shooting a 5-shot bolt-action repeater. When this weapon first got on the battlefield, our seniors that had been in combat said, "Hey guys, shoot 5 rounds. Hold off a second or two." The Japanese love to bonsai your position when you run out of your 5 rounds. That's what they did to us on the canal. Well, our Marines did. They'd hold off, and here's what's waiting when they bonsai. 3 more rounds. Semi-automatic also gives him a faster rate of fire, but you still have to control and hit your target. Now, you probably couldn't hear it well, but y'all saw the little black thing jump out of the back of that receiver. That was the M-block magazine. It makes a distinctive pinging noise. Well, folks, the Japanese aren't stupid. They've never lost a war. Therefore, the survivors went back and said, "Hey, don't do that. Wait till they go ping. Now they're empty. Now you can bonsai." Well, my first sergeant always carried one of these on his belt. I asked him why one time. He said, "Well, that's so that I'll fire 4 or 5 rounds, I'll do this." Let him jump up one more time. It's a trick, but it works. That weapon was considered the best rifle ever invented. A lot of Marines came home because of that weapon. Study and learn well.
In the dying days of World War I, the United States was looking for a submachine gun. A man named John T. Thompson introduced the model 1921 Thompson submachine gun. It was turned down. However, he was a businessman and he wanted to make money. And he found that business with the gangsters of the Roaring Twenties. With names like the Chicago typewriter and more famously known as Tommy gun, there you go. Made this weapon famous. It made the United States military reconsider finally adopting it in 1928. The model you see here is the M1A1 version, the latest of its kind. It's air-cooled, blowback operated, and a magazine-fed weapon. It fires from the open bolt position, so air can enter the breech and cool the barrel. It fires a 45 caliber ACP cartridge in either the 20 or 30 round box magazine as you see here. Now on my body, I carry a small pouch of 30 round magazines. I could have a whole belt full of magazines, but I'm going light today. But this weapon fires 600 to 800 rounds per minute. Maximum effective range, 75 yards. And it had its drawbacks. It was heavy, 11 pounds loaded. Had a lack of control in being fired. It had a tendency to rise. But the Marines loved this weapon because it was great in the close quarters combat like the Pacific. I'll now demonstrate this weapon. Please put yours in. True American firepower, folks, a 1921 top submachine gun. Tommy gun's a baby. Here's its daddy. This is the BAR, the Browning Automatic Rifle, adopted in 1918. The BAR is good for three things. Number one, it is a machine gun, a walking machine gun. Number two is its knockdown power, 30-06. And number three is its penetration. Because of the heavy barrel of the BAR, you can fire what is called the black-tipped AP round. Guess what? That stands for armor piercing. And it can penetrate skin vehicles, concrete bunkers, and all kinds of wood. But you do have to have a lot of ammunition to do so. BAR is 47 inches in length, and it weighs 19 pounds. Maximum effective range is 600 yards, which means if you can see him, you can hit him. Because you fire the BAR from the rear side ladder leaf and the front side blade, it's only as good as your eyes. Its rate of fire is 600 rounds per minute. Very fast. However, there is a catch in this. Continue to fire from the cyclic rate, as it's called, will cause the barrel to get so hot that it will turn red and bend. Want to know what that's called? It's called warping the barrel, and when you do that, you lose your BAR because you have only one barrel and you can't take it off. So when I was in boot camp, I was taught to fire 3 to 5 rounds per trigger squeeze, about 40 to 60 rounds per minute. It will get hot and smoke all day, but the barrel will not bend. BAR is air-cooled. Fired from the open bolt position, thus air can enter the ejection port, cool the breech and barrel. It's gas-operated, meaning that gas next to the tube underneath the barrel will push down the gas piston, compress the recoil spring, and drive the operating slide to the rear, causing a cycle of operations, unlocking, extracting, ejecting, chambering, feeding, cocking, locking, and firing. And it will continue to do this till all the rounds are spent. BAR is magazine fed. On my body, I carry 240 rounds of 30-06. That's 17 pounds. It comes in 12 20-round box magazines. Now, I am a machine gunner, so I can't carry it all. So if you will look with me to my left rear, I have what is called my A gunner, or assistant gunner. Look at the bandolier on his shoulder. He carries 120 rounds, 6 magazines just for me. He also provides target acquisition and assists me with cover fire if my BAR were to jam. But his most important job is if I go down on the field and become a casualty, guess what? He will become the new BAR man. This is a shoulder-fired weapon. In boot camp, you are trained to fire it 3 different ways. Sitting, kneeling, and using the bipod and butt hinge plate in the prone position, where the BAR is its most stable and effective. Since I am a machine gunner in a pinch, I'm also taught the assault position, off the hip underneath the armpit. Alright, here's a moment you've been waiting for. I'm going to fire the BAR. But before I do, I have a selector switch on the receiver of my weapon right here. Tells me the rate of fire I want to fire this weapon. It's got 2 letters on it. One says F, the other says A. F means fast. A, awful fast. Stock of the weapon. I have what is called a spring buffer mechanism that takes the recoil off my shoulder and increases my accuracy and shooting endurance. Alright, let's get it on. Go. Yeah. I got it. Before I go, I have one more thing I'd like to add. A very good friend of mine was a BAR man in Europe.
His name was Ben Parrish. He fought in the 2nd Infantry Division in Normandy. He's a very good friend of mine. I loved him very much. Unfortunately, he passed away last year in the summer. And now his story has forever faded in the books of history. Did you know that there were 250,000 BARs made in World War II? Of course, it is not the weapon itself. It's the man behind the weapon. And guess what? They are dying at 1,000 per day. So please, if you get nothing else out of this show, I'd ask that you get this one thing. Thank a veteran for what they have done for you, especially since it is our nation's birthday. If it weren't for them, you would not be sitting here as free men and women today. BAR.
Earplug.
Have been personal or individual weapons society. Feeling it or something
Hurry,
different?
I dropped my earplug, what should I do? I dropped my other earplug. Rip this one in half.
Right, and you'll take a look at the aft mount and LBT behind me.
Thank you.
And the Marine standing in front of you. What you see him holding is a 1984 Browning 30 caliber light machine gun. Weighs 30 pounds. And it's conceivable that one Marine could run around the battlefield and manipulate this weapon. There's also other pieces of gear that go along with it. There's a tripod, traversing and elevating mechanism, ammunition. All in told, this weapon system can weigh upwards of 50 pounds. So it comes into a new category, that of the crew served weapon. Let's take a look at what one of those teams looks like. Machine gun team, deploy your weapon. What you see passing in front of you right now is a 4-man machine gun team. First 2 men out are riflemen. Their job is to guard that team, guard their flanks, and protect them. They're also ammunition bearers. Each can that they carry has an additional 250 rounds of ammunition for that gun. The 3rd man out is the gunner carrying the tripod. The reason he carries the tripod is because that gunner is going to select his fields of fire. He is going to choose where on the battlefield to employ that weapon where it can be most effective. The last man out is the assistant gunner with the gun. Once the tripod is in place, he will lay the gun on the tripod and roll to the side. He'll then assist in loading, clearing any stoppages, and finding and ranging targets. The 1984 is belt fed from either a disintegrating metallic belt like this or a cloth belt. It is inserted into the left side of the weapon, and then the empty belt is expelled out the right side while the empty cartridges drop out the bottom. It fires at a cyclic rate of 450 rounds a minute and is air-cooled and fully automatic. Let's take a look at what she'll do. Machine gun team, fire your weapon. And he can do that all day long because it is a belt-fed weapon. The effective range is 1,200 yards. And while each round fired from this gun is not inherently that accurate, the idea here, folks, is accuracy through volume. Normally in combat, the weapon is used to fire over the heads or to the flanks of advancing troops, putting fire on the enemy to keep their heads down, and hopefully inflicting as many casualties as possible before our assault troops close with them and finish the job. Machine gun team, prepare to displace. Displace. Good job, riflemen. Keeping them safe. Now, if you've got one piece of military equipment we're going to designate as light, the chances are good that you're going to have another piece which we'll designate as heavy. If you direct your attention to the pedal mount on this Jeep and the front mount on the LVT behind me, what you see mounted there is the Browning 50 caliber M2 HB for heavy barrel machine gun, also called Ma Deuce. Very similar to its smaller cousin, it fires at the cyclic rate of 450 rounds a minute. It is air-cooled, it is belt-fed, and it is fully automatic. But there the similarity ends. Where the effective range of the 30 caliber is 1,200 yards, the effective range of the 50 is beyond 2,000. And while it can be moved around the battlefield by a crew of men, normally, because the gun weighs over 70 pounds, you'll find it mounted on vehicles, aircraft, and boats, used to destroy vehicles, aircraft, and boats at that 2,000 yard range, as well as pretty much anything else you pointed at. If you look around an average city block, you won't find anything on that city block to hide from it behind. Not trees, not cars, trucks, buildings, concrete, dirt embankments, you name it on an average city block, and the 50 caliber Browning can penetrate it. Just to put it in perspective, here are your 30 caliber rounds. Here are your 50. Fires a half-inch bullet. Let's take a look at what she'll do. Put your ears in. Adopted in 1921 as an anti-tank weapon, the M2 50 caliber machine gun is still in use in places today in almost this exact same configuration by your troops in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. There you have your crew-served weapons, your 1919 A4 Browning 30 caliber light machine gun, and the M2 50 caliber heavy Ma Deuce. Thank you.
Pacific War is an island war. That means we have our troops and ships that need to get to the island. To do that, we need a special vehicle. The vehicle I'm pointing at back here in the back corner is our LVT-4. That vehicle, class of vehicle, did not exist before the beginning of World War II. A young engineer designed a vehicle to evacuate people out of the Everglades after hurricanes. What he designed was a vehicle that would float, one that had tracks to climb over obstacles underwater and propel itself with the tracks. Now, the vehicle has a 250 horsepower, 7-cylinder gasoline engine in it, crew of 2. It can carry 20 to 25 troops in the back compartment. Now, this -4 model is improved and it has a ramp in the back so it can be dropped once it's out of water. You can also put a Jeep in there if you need to. Once it's put in the water, the troops are put in it, they climb down the side of the ship, climb into the vehicle, and it brings itself to the shore 6 to 7 miles an hour into the water. It will crawl over undersea reefs, which boats cannot do. Once on the shore, the ramp will be dropped. The troops can go out either side of the vehicle using it as cover. Now, the vehicle is not an armored vehicle, it is mild steel, similar to your car. And the crew is even given a bag of corks and a hammer to take care of that. Once the vehicle is empty, usually the wounded would be put back on board. It would back into the water and go back out to the ship for a return trip. The LVT-4. Our next vehicle is our moving pillbox, which is usually brought in that night or the next day once the beachhead is secured. Our M3A1 Stewart light tank. The light tank class usually is less than 15 tons. This vehicle weighs right at 12 tons right now without the armament in it. It has a 37 millimeter cannon, the same 250 horsepower engine as the LVT. It has 4 seats in it, but typically in the Pacific we only use 3 seats. We had the driver, the bow gunner, and the commander who also loaded the cannon and fired it. We did not have major tank battles in the Pacific, so it's usually a one-on-one situation. The commander in the turret could man the gun, arm it, fire it, and still control the vehicle. It has a top speed of 30 miles an hour. And that's pretty well it. That's our M4A1 Stewart. I'm fixing to back it out. Everybody wants to know how you get in it. There's two hatches in the top of the turret. There's one door on the front, and you'll see me go in there in a second.
How many of you watch war movies? Come on, be honest. Now I'm going to ask you a question that's going to date some of you, so be careful as you answer this. How many of you remember John Wayne? Outstanding. How many of you remember the Duke taking one of these, pulling the pin with his teeth, throw it 300 yards, knock a guy out of a tree? Well, if the Duke had my hand grenade and he pulled that pin with his teeth, he meets the newest member of the Navy called a dentist. If I had John Wayne's hand grenade hanging on my gear and I went walking through that jungle, a vine reaches up, pulls the pin, it falls between my legs. I get what the Navy calls a negative entry in my health record. Mark II fragmentation hand grenade, folks. Now there's two ways I'm going to get this guy out of a bunker behind me. He's armed with a machine gun. I can use Hollywood or reality. I'll tell you which one's going to work. Well, let's talk about this guy. You grab that spoon, you prime that pin, you pull that pin. Pay attention to the sergeant. Throw this, not this. You can throw it about 30 yards. Her blast radius is 50 yards. You release that spoon, you light a 5-second fuse. You're told to throw it immediately, and we do. 5 seconds later, we hear a bang go off out there because we duck. But in battle, folks, 5 seconds is an eternity. You throw it that fast, he throws it back. You get that negative entry in your health record. Pay attention. Release that spoon. You count 1001, 1002, 1000, and you throw that grenade as hard as you can. You're not going to get that bunker with this. We knew that. The Japanese knew that. So the Marine Corps devised the best plan that we could come up with. Combat Assault Team. Right here.
Flamethrower. Oh, yeah. I hope they demonstrate.
It doesn't make any difference in the numbers. It makes the difference of how you put it together. In our case, we're using 4 men. The first man, Thompson submachine gun. Second man, Mark II flamethrower. Third man, satchel charge. Fourth man, shotgun. You already know what the Thompson's going to do. Now meet number 2, the flamethrower. Mark II, 75 pounds on his back. He is the slowest man in my platoon. He goes nowhere fast. He fills his big tanks with diesel, gas mixture, or napalm. He puts that little tank to use because that's compressed air or nitrogen. He opens the valve on his right rear hip. He mixes the 2 contents. It's now under pressure, 2100 psi. He squeezes those back 2 triggers on that wand. And he puts his fuel down range 80 yards. He squeezes that front trigger. He lights his fire. Nobody ever survived a flamethrower. And it doesn't burn their victims. It suffocates them. In the blink of an eye, it's going to suck the oxygen out of that bunker, and they're going to die less than a minute later. We have a plan. Blind them, burn them, blast them. When the Japanese learned of that flamethrower, they helped the first part because they blinded themselves for us. They would close all those embrasures and close off and get away. They couldn't see us coming. He would go in and burn them. The next is obvious. The Scepter charge comes forward. Dynamite, TNT, any kind of explosive we can put in that bunker, we're going to blow and collapse that bunker. So there may be more of them below and several layers below. If that's not enough, the last man, probably the meanest man in my platoon, is armed with a model 1897 pump shotgun. With 5 rounds of double-aught buck, 12 gauge, he is the equivalent of 5 Marines with M1 rifles at close range. His maximum range is 75 yards. If he gets close enough, he will make sure these guys don't come up behind my troops. Get yours on. Demonstrate your peace.
The guys over
The Japanese commander on Tarawa made a statement, said, 1 million Marines will not take this out in 1,000 years. We took it in 76 hours. America flinched from the battle. We lost 1,200 men in 76 hours. America realized the rest of this war was going to be just as bloody, if not bloodier. We have recreated a portion of Tarawa here in front of you. You've seen the tactics, you've seen the weapons. Now watch a part of how it works. Get yours on. Now let's fix that tackle. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't do this to go up by war. Again, this weekend is your 235th birthday of this country. But we do this for those 8 million men in the Pacific Theater under Admiral Nimitz and General MacArthur. We do this for the 292,000 Americans that didn't come home. Japan lost 2.1 million people in this war. We do this for those veterans. We don't get a lot of these guys, but when I do, I like to break y'all's attention aware to them here. Read a couple names. Gentlemen, if you're with me, if you'd please stand. James Ramsey, United States Marine Corps. Albino Mendoza, Navy. We've done this since 1991. A few of us might look a little long in the tooth. Can't help that part. I try to stay in shape with these guys, but I'm constantly recruiting. How about meet my volunteers? Fall in. Sons and grandsons and some great-grandsons of real veterans. Some of these guys are retired Marines. We've got a few of them. Got a crazy one on a shotgun on the end down there, so be careful of him. He used to fly jets. Now I know why you don't hear me too well sometimes. I've got a young man that this weekend is his last weekend with me. He joined the United States Navy. Deacon, where are you at? Thank you. That doesn't get a lot of attention because of what the show's designed to do, just the way it is. It's my Japanese contingent down here. Last Tuesday, we had the honor of being invited to speak before the Naval Alumni Association in Austin, Texas. So I thought, what better way to talk about tactics is to have a Marine and a Japanese officer standing there talking. And I want you to know that young man, my Japanese commander, stole a show. So the guy asked me, he said, well, what do you do? And he goes, well, I'm a plumber here in Austin. What that tells me, folks, that's a real American. Guys from all walks of life that come out here to do the history, just like these young men here, young Marines, Naval ROTC, grandsons, college kids. This is my volunteers. Platoon, left, face, route step, march. Got a few things I have to unfortunately do as the job here. I am the reenactor coordinator, living history volunteer. I get to clean the place. So before you go, I'll ask you not to come up on the battlefield. The brass is still hot. There may be charges that didn't go off. You guys like that little pyro section we have added to the show? Yeah. Y'all know it's pretty good? Good. Good. Thank y'all. Also the sound effects guys. These guys have done a great job helping us over the years getting us organized. So please don't come up here. It might be dangerous. But come over here and look at the little tank when we're through. If you get a chance, go to these two buildings behind me. You'll know if you remember your history, the youngest Navy pilot was George Henry Walker Bush, 41st president. He flew a TBM Avenger. We have one like that over here. But if you want to see one of the rarest boats in the United States Navy, go to this building. It's PT 309, the last surviving combat veteran PT boat on display in this country. Out of 650 boats, she's the last one. You can go see that one. Last but not least, I need your help. It's called money. You knew that was coming, didn't you? Well, it's either that or we're going to go run laps. What's your choice? Seriously, folks, it's the money that keeps this program alive. I'm the only paid staff here. These are all volunteers out here. I'm the only paid staff. So if you like this show, you like what we're doing, why we're doing it, help us out. Go back here and get your dog tags. If you don't have a dog tag, you don't need to leave this place. Get your dog tags. Pokey bait. You guys know, what pokey bait is? Outstanding. You see these guys are going like, yeah, I got it. Get a t-shirt or a hat. That money stays here. I'll tell you what. Give me $10, and this young lady right here is going to give you that 50 cal shell. Put that on your workstation work, nobody will mess with you. If you're feeling really rich, give me $100. She's going to give you that link of ammo right there. Hang that on the rear view mirror and meet all the law enforcement on the way home. All right, before I forget, and I'm going to do this, so Rich, would you come out here with this little map thing? This is our education director, Mr. Rich Kuhn. He's got a little map on my head. You hang that, hold that up. I got too much stuff on you. You got to do something. Y'all recognize that map? Yes, it's the United States. We have a great deal right now running. We've got a raffle for 2 round-trip tickets for anywhere on this map that this company flies to. Ticket is $3 or $4 for $1. That money benefits the foundation. So see Rich after the show, get you signed up, and get a flight. And guys, you get to meet those wonderful TSA people. Oh, the officer good. He said we're only selling 500. I've got 450 though. I'm just kidding. That thing ends on July the 9th also, by the way. So now the day to get your ticket on this. Thank you, Rich. All right, ladies. I have been working for you for 6 months, trying to figure out what am I going to sell in a guy's show for the girls. It took me 6 months to figure this out, and I got it. I got it right here. The ladies' armored purse. Ladies, you get one of those things, you go to malls, right? You walk in the mall with that purse, you can watch how people get out of your way. No waiting in line. Works every time. Folks, do us a favor. Put some money in that box over there or buy something. Support this program. Thank America for being here. Thank a veteran. Thank you for coming.